So to begin with, our four lovely women who had us set up here before, we're going to invite you to come first. Business and trades panel, beginning with Riley Demidoff, who is an oil field excavator operator. No particular order, sit wherever you guys are comfortable. Allison Klee, is that right?
Yes.
Klee? Okay, yep. Excellent. Thanks, Allison. Who is a Red Seal electrician. Brittany Gill, who is a business coach. And Alicia Linden, who is CEO of Linden & Co. Welcome, ladies. Could you give them a round of applause? So, of course, we're talking about being rounded women, bringing all of ourselves to the table, and then I just gave them like a title each. So we don't fit into just that title. But if you guys wouldn't mind introducing yourselves again and just take a brief minute to tell us what you do for work and anything else you'd like us to know about you.
My name is Allison Klee. I am not just an electrician, I also have my home-based businesses. I do Mary Kay and then I do Love Winks as well over there. They help to allow me to meet women and get out there and empower women in a completely different way. Whereas I usually spend all day with men and then I get to go party at night with women. So I get to save the fun stuff.
That's awesome. Okay, and I want to circle back to that. So let's remember that because it must be refreshing to work with women after being in a male-dominated field.
Oh yes, very much.
Talk about that too. Okay, Alicia.
So my name is Alicia Vanderlinden, and I'm the CEO and owner of Linden & Co. We're a boutique social media agency here in Kamloops, but we work with women all over the world, which is really, really awesome because I get to talk to women who are in all kinds of businesses and industries in North America. And I grew up in Fort St. John, which is 11 hours north, and it is an oil field town. So pretty much all the men in my life, the women in my life even, are in the oil field, and I was like, no, thank you. I will move away from that. So, yeah, that's me.
Which also gives you an interesting bird's eye view on some of these other trades that we're talking about, that you've had experience in that, and watching a female, your mom, also operate within the systems.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Great.
My name is Brittany Gill, and I am a business coach for women in the wellness industry. And I also have roots in the trades as well. I originally went into trades with the goal of being a Red Seal carpenter, and that vastly changed through experiences that we'll probably talk about in here. So yeah, I'm really passionate about women and empowering women.
Excellent. Thanks.
I'm Riley Demidoff. Born and raised in the construction industry, and I'm still in it. I love it. I'm through and through an oil field operator now. Been doing it since 2012 now, and I love it. It's an industry that I've always done and I feel confident in, and I will always do.
That's great. So do you go and work in the field for a couple of weeks and then you come
I
back?
do. So I work a 20 and 10 rotation.
Okay.
So for 20 days I'm out, and then I drive home, and 10 days I get home.
It's a heavy rotation.
So yeah.
How do you find a balance with your personal life with that kind of rotation?
I try. I don't really, but I do the best I can. I find that's the best way. Typically I work a 12-hour to 10-hour drive away from here, so I find working away for that hitch, the best way I can enjoy my time at home is to have 10 full days at home, and that's the only way to balance both.
You found a rhythm that worked for
I
your
do.
career.
I found a rhythm that I love. I've done 6 and 1 for probably 3 years, and I was living in any town that I was able to find work in, and I didn't like that. I didn't have that balance.
Yeah, that's difficult.
So now I found the 20 and 10 where I can come home and I'm allowed to live a life for 10 days and not have to worry about anything else going on at work. So
how does that work schedule-wise for you then? Do you have a regular set schedule then?
Right now I'm working just 7 to 3:30.
Okay.
Monday to Friday. Got really lucky, got a job at home, which makes me happy. I tried the out-of-town work. I wasn't the kind of person who could deal with it. I just didn't have the supports that I needed out of town, and so I came home after 6 months.
And are any of you parents as well? Just curious. Okay. Yeah, because I'm also curious about how that would impact that kind of a schedule if you're a mom when you come to that point, because we all know that scheduling can be tremendously limiting when you have children as well, and that it's socially acceptable often for a man to go and work away for that 20, but how do you do that when you're a mother and the household burden is on you? So maybe we'll touch on that in some of the other panels as well. When you envision your industry for women, what does it look like? now versus how you would envision it ideally if things were to change? Maybe that's something we can offer just as we go down the line. So when you envision it and you think about it, how would you say that it impacts women now, and how would you like to see it change ideally?
I think right now it's still an intimidating field. It's hard for a woman to be like, you know what, I want to go in there, I want to work next to men all day, all the time. But I would like to see it as a place where a woman doesn't have to have a tough outer shell, where she doesn't have to be strong and be able to quit back. She doesn't have to be bold that way, whereas a woman who is soft and soft-spoken can actually succeed in a world where she doesn't have to yell over men all the time.
You don't have to fit into that box that's predefined for you, right? And I think that probably applies to a lot of other industries too, where you can be, not defined by that traditional role. Yeah, you can still make up on the side. Alicia, how about you? Tell us a little bit how gender roles play into what you do.
So with social media, it's tech, a little bit of tech, and it's a little bit of business. And just through my own experiences and what I see in my industry is there's a lot of male CEOs, but there's a lot of females in the industry, if that makes sense. So it's like men that are running the companies, but it's women that are like kind of doing the day-to-day work. So a lot of industries will have women running accounts, they'll have women that are dealing with the clients, yet the men are the CEOs, which, I kind of was like, I want to be a CEO.
Yeah.
So I think right now I feel like there's almost a ceiling in the tech industry. I mean, the statistics kind of tell that as well, that there is a ceiling. And I can honestly say I don't know why, because tech and marketing and business, a lot of that has to do with storytelling and connection. And women are amazing at storytelling, and women are so amazing with connection. So I would definitely like to see women who are working in like agencies, and they, if they want, they should just have the courage to do it on their own. Because I started my business like 3 years ago. I was 21, so I was young. I was kind of just like at a place in my life where I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and it's like you can do it from a computer, you can do it from anywhere. And
it's just fortunate when you're working in the social media realm. It's
Absolutely.
a little tougher, right? When you're working
Yes.
in an industry like
Yes.
yours, but
Yeah.
that's a beautiful asset for
yeah,
your field.
and I think for women, like to be able to have that flexibility in their schedule and the time for self-care or kids or whatever, I think I would just like to see more women just take the leap, basically. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
That's great. I don't know what the actual statistic is, but women more than ever are starting businesses, and they're failing at their businesses faster than men are. So we're actually starting businesses faster than men are. And there
So
is
you're
a
tracking
ceiling.
like entrepreneurial.
Yeah, entrepreneurial. So, and there is a ceiling where a lot of women get to a certain income level or a certain size in their business, and they actually get blocked and they stop. So what I see for women is similar for you. It's like they're in a role of being the CEO, running their businesses, and scaling bigger and making a bigger and bigger impact in the world.
And do you see potential for that? When you look ahead, do you feel like there's progress being made?
Definitely. When we do the healing work that goes along with that imbalance of the female and the masculine, when we start to balance that out, because I think they're both equally important, and when we start to balance that out, we can really bring our feminine qualities to business and start to do business in a way that is sustainable for ourselves, the planet, for the rest of humankind. And there is that potential for women to be in that CEO role.
And maybe for the first time ever, there's a wider path forward when we're talking about those things.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like you said, you do need a strong type of woman to go out and work in the industry. That's just the reality. It's not just women, it's men too. You're going out and you're working. For me, it's typically outside of a town where no one else is around. You're isolated for 20 days.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a unique type of person to do that and thrive at it. I mean, I don't think that's any reason for someone not to go in it. I think that's more empowering. I think that more people should be led toward that and know that it's not something that anyone can do. And if you're drawn to that field, then go at it and give it a shot. And that's where I want to see us go, is that more women are going out there and trying it. It is intimidating. It's an intimidating world, whether you're a man or a female, but more women need to get out there and try it and see that, but it's not as intimidating as you see.
And probably the more women who do that, the intimidation factor goes down, right?
Yes.
Tangibly, when we see another woman standing beside us, when they're allies in the room.
Yes, 100%.
Thanks. I'm also curious, as you were answering that question, about men who you've found who have supported you in good ways in those roles, because I think it's also really easy to talk about all the ways that we have suffered under that patriarchal arch, but there are also men who are working as allies and perfect allies along with us as well. Do you have an example of a time that there was a man that you worked with, and we've touched on CEOs, so that's maybe a good one, but a man in power who you found did support you in a positive way that you'd like to see more of in future?
One of my first jobs was actually with a small family company here in town, and there was 3 male electricians, all journeymen, and I was the only apprentice. And each one of them, I was like their little sister, I was like their daughter, I belonged to this family. They taught me everything, they took me under their wing, and they are the reason why I love being an electrician. Everything since then, every bad thing that's happened, I think of them and I think of everything that they wanted for me and everything that they saw in me as a person, because they saw how much I loved my job. They saw how much I wanted to do it, and they nurtured that and they helped me grow that. And just the family feeling, and it was amazing. They were the best.
That's a beautiful thing, and I think we need to be telling those stories too. Those stories that say there are good men who come alongside and make us feel like family and elevate us in our industry. That's possible, and I hope that as we see that balance, we will also see more of those men elevated. Thanks for sharing that.
I can't necessarily think of anything personally, to be totally honest, that's like directly affected me. However, my dad had his own construction company, and he always hired women. Like, it was never, my dad's a very emotional man. He's not like us. He owns a construction company, but he's very much not the type of man to be like, I'm only going to hire men. Like, he's very liberal.
Which does exist.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely it does. So he always hired women, and I feel like through seeing that and through seeing my mom working in the oil field, I feel like for me, I didn't really have this idea of gender roles until I got out of the household and I moved actually to Kamloops. Of course you're aware of things and you see things and you hear things, but for myself actually experiencing like, oh, I'm being treated a little bit differently right now because I'm a woman. I feel like I was never even aware of that until I moved out of the house, because like my mom was the breadwinner in our family. Like, my mom was the one that was working 16-hour days. My mom was the one in the oil field. And my dad was home a lot more often than my mom was. However, my mom still had to cook. My mom still had to clean. My mom still had to book the appointments, pick us up, drop us off. And I mean, my dad comes from a farm family, so that's just the way it is. My grandma, has, she babies the farmers, and that's just kind of how it is.
But household labor still fell to her.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which was frustrating. Like, I do remember being young and being frustrated by that and being like, but you're home more often. Like, why don't you wash a dish? Like, I don't understand. So, but I feel like it's unfortunate. I really can't think of anything personally where a man has actually been like in a mentorship position with me. I've had a lot of women. Yeah, that's true.
I agree. Yeah, I think
that's a good way of looking at it, for sure.
And the more we become aware of these imbalances, the better they can do. Because
Yes.
I don't think most men at that time in that place where that was a conscious thing.
Yeah.
Right? When we've always operated a certain way in
Yeah.
society, it's not until we achieve better balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I've had quite a few men who were mentors and teachers. My dad, teachers all through school, and most recently my own business coach is my rock, my super grounded rock, and he works with men, but he also works with a lot of women, and helps put on women-based business events. And that's been really healing, to work one-on-one with a man who is very in touch with his feminine, but also has a masculine way of doing things. And he's just really been able to, I've watched it in myself pull out the potential, but also in a whole bunch of other women. And it really is, it's life-changing seeing men be in service in such an intimate way to women, and I haven't fully seen that up until fairly recently. And now that I'm more aware of it, I see it more and more.
Yeah, and as we educate ourselves about these imbalances, we educate the men who are working around us and empower them to do that.
Yeah. I'm pretty lucky. I've had quite a number of men that have just kind of taken me under their wing and welcomed me into their industry with no judgment, no pretenses, just kind of held my hand and walked me through what needs to be done and been there to support me when it hasn't. But probably my biggest rock was forever and will ever be my father. Like, same thing, he started me when I was young. He taught me that I can do it, and that's the only thing I can bring to the industry at the end of the day, is that I can do it as long as I have the confidence, and if I can't do it, I need to have the confidence to be willing to learn. And he's showed me all the basics. He hasn't given me everything through handouts. He's made me work for what I have, and it's probably the biggest blessing I could ask for.
What did your dad do in the trade?
He owned a construction-based business.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And what was your composite family like? Do you have siblings?
I do. I have a younger brother that's actually a waiter and wants nothing to do with the construction industry, which is funny because when my brother was born, my dad had the happiest day he's ever had. He was all excited. But we work in completely opposite fields, but he works as a waiter and he loves it. He thrives at it. He does very well at it. My mom was an accountant for my dad's company for a lot of years, and that was kind of her basis. But
so we see there his ability to overcome his assumptions and find the gifting in you that served the purpose. Yeah, that's fantastic. I love hearing those stories. I think often women feel the pressure to prove themselves, particularly on a job site, and I think that's in a unique way, and that can also be an office. It doesn't necessarily just have to be a job site, but I think it probably is specific on a job site. Can you guys tell us a little bit about your experience with that, if you have had any, and if you feel there's an imbalance there in your need to, and how you combat that?
It's definitely an imbalance.
Yeah.
I had no grounding in trades whatsoever. Like, my dad worked at a mill, and my mom was a secretary, so I just kind of went into trades out of the blue. So I had no real allies until that company took me on. But then when I was on at another company doing work with other people who I didn't have that relationship with, I found a lot of times my failures were counted more than my successes. So when I did something well, it doesn't matter how hard I worked at something. It doesn't matter if I got that job done early, or if I got this job done like under the quote with like less materials or whatever. It didn't matter how good I did. Anytime I failed, it was way worse than any time the guy next to me failed. Or because his brother's in the office, or his dad is a friend from like another work site that gets them jobs. Like, everybody has ties. It seems, especially in Kamloops, which is a very small town, but at the same time I found a way to just like power through and know that take those successes on myself and congratulate myself for those successes and say, I did that amazing. Take pictures of my work. I share it. Nobody gets it. Like, look at this pipe. And everybody's like, cool. Looks like a pipe.
But that's a lot of discouragement to overcome. And I don't think that should be underestimated. That kind of discouragement often pushes people out of their field and out of their passion work. Were you just so passionate about your industry that you chose to overcome that, or what would you say made you dig in?
That and the fact that this is my livelihood. This is my life. Your opinions about me are not going to affect the fact that I have to pay my mortgage.
Right.
Like, it doesn't.
Write that down, folks.
Like, it's like, I need that money at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what that guy says. He's not going to get in the way of me living and making that money and earning that money for the life that I want beyond my job as well. And some days I have to think back on the better times, right? I have to think back on that family. I have to think back on my friends at the union hall, the other women that I've met through that have supported me the entire time. And I think about the good on the bad days. And
And knowing
That's all you
that
can really do.
there is a little girl looking at that picture of the pipe and being like, oh, that looks cool. Right? And every time we continue to pave the way, we make it smoother for the women who come behind us. I'd ask the same question of you.
100%. I'm kind of the same thing. I prove myself every single time. For me, working the oil field, I worked with 2 companies so far over the course of 2-year span. I was the first female in both of those companies, and both of them have been running for 30 plus years.
Wow.
So for me, it was incredibly intimidating because they didn't really know how to handle me. Not that they had to handle me any differently, but the fact that I didn't work with any other females. There wasn't a single female. So it comes with a sexual aspect to it that a lot of people have run into, and they were trying to combat that early without giving me the chance to show that that wasn't why I was there.
Right.
So I continuously ran into issues, and even on, like, when I work on a rig, I could be there for 20 days, and then my next hitch I'll be on a brand new rig. So I get to do it all over again. And I was doing that with my first company every single hitch. So I was constantly with a new rig, and I was constantly with a new environment of men who have never worked in the industry, and some of them have been there their whole lives, and they're like, wow, there's a female here, and we don't really know how to take you. We don't really know what to do.
We're scared of you.
Yeah, we're scared of the repercussions that could potentially happen.
Right.
So it typically took a few amount of days for them to welcome me in, but once they did, there was no looking back.
Right.
And I've talked to people who stayed in my life, and they still are like, we need more. Like, you've now been shifted to a different rig, and now we want more women. Like, we liked the environment better when you were here versus before you ever showed up. But you're the only one that's doing it. Same as my company, they constantly say to me, you're the only woman we've hired because we don't know anyone else. We have no other woman that's knocking at our doorstep saying, hey, we want to do this too. So you're always proving yourself, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. You're constantly challenging what you do, but for me, that makes me a better operator every single hitch.
Yeah, and I love that idea. That the environment is better simply because there's a woman in it who brings this unique perspective.
Complete diversity switch. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. We have to wrap up this panel, and it's not nearly long enough. But just as we close out, and I know Dana's giving me the wrap up, but I'm going to give you one more chance. If there's something about your field that people don't know, specifically as it pertains to women, that you would want people to know, what would it be as you examine whether it's being a business coach or working in the social media world or in a trade? What would that, if there's a myth you'd like to dispel or something you'd like people to know about it, what would it be?
The big one I find in trades and probably other places too, is just you're not alone. I worked out of town and I felt nothing but alone. And then I joined a Facebook group and I met a bunch of other women. And now I have a community of women. So even if I am by myself, I'm never alone because there are other people who share that same past, that same history, those same experiences. And
those same challenges. Find your tribe.
Yeah.
That's great. And social media is a beautiful avenue to that people didn't used to have, right? We were isolated in different ways. Once you left your university where there were a couple other women in your class, you might find yourself isolated. So that's a path to that.
Yeah, that's what I love about what I do. That's what I love about social media, is how it connects people. I've met most of the people in my tribe at this moment, I've met through social media. But what I would say to any woman in the tech or business industry is just don't be afraid to show up. Because I feel like, especially working from home, it was really easy for me to shut myself in my apartment and not go out and introduce myself to people because I'm young and I'm a woman and I always had this fear I wouldn't be taken seriously. My business has doubled in the last 3 months ever since I just started going out in the community and introducing myself to people and talking to people and making connections. Like, my business has literally doubled and it's going to triple by the end of the summer. So, like, don't be afraid to show up, essentially.
Yeah, lovely. I love that thought. Yeah, put that imposter syndrome aside. Let's shut the liar out, right? Because sometimes it's not always like from outside sources. We tell ourselves the lies that hold us back.
We have our own hang-ups sometimes about what we think other people will think of us.
Every single one of us in every single industry.
Yeah.
Yes, and this builds on both of those, but I really strongly believe that when a woman is in her power and she's doing whatever she wants to do, whether that's in trades, in business for herself, in any corporate environment, that when a woman really steps into her power, then everything else around her shifts. And when women really step into that power, the men follow. And so we're really the forefront and the leaders of so much movement and so much change for the better.
And I feel like a lot of men are uniquely listening right now in ways that they haven't been too. So we have an opportunity to honor that with them as well, but also to continue leading.
Yeah.
Just don't give up. I mean, I don't know, I've been told no countless times for every job, but there's also been that one company that says yes, and I've been lucky enough to find the company I have, and they've been nothing but supportive for me, so just about not giving up. And this company I never thought would hire me. I mean, they've never hired a female before ever. But just don't give up. That's it. I mean, really,
love it.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you guys 1,000 more questions. There's so many more that I'd love to. We're out of time for this panel. Would you give these women a hand?